Hey there, I'm Eric Wills. Welcome to the Hal Leonard Fast Track Bass DVD, and congratulations on picking one of the finer rock and roll instruments out there to learn, the electric bass. Pretty soon you'll see that learning the bass is a lot of fun, and you'll be surprised by how quickly you can pick up the basics and start making music. In this video, I'm going to teach the essentials of what you need to know to get started, so that in a few weeks you'll be playing some hit tunes and be ready to go jam out with your friends, maybe even start a band. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's always going to be easy. To get good, you're going to need to observe the 3 P's: patience, practice, and pace, as in pace yourself. Don't get too excited and rush through the lessons or skip ahead. Instead, try and get comfortable with each exercise before moving on to the next. And if you're frustrated or need a rest, put it down and come back later, because we'll still be here. Likewise, if your fingers start hurting, just take a 10-minute break and pick up where you left off. All right, you ready to go? Grab your bass and let's get started. So this is my bass. It's a fairly standard one, probably looks a lot like yours. The main part of the bass is called the body. That's this part right here. And on the body you have the volume control, the tone control, and the output jack. Over here is the bridge. This thing just holds the strings in place. And this guy over here is called the pickup. Pickup helps take the sound of your bass to the amplifier. Your bass may have more than one, which just means that you have more options when it comes to sound or tone. Connected to the body is the neck. That's where you have the fingerboard, and that's where the magic happens, because that's where you're going to put your fingers to make notes. These little metal bars on the fingerboard, those are called frets, and the dots around here are just markers to give you a reference point to where you're playing on the neck. So moving on down the neck, you have your head, also called the headstock, and that's where the tuning keys are found. Those allow you to change the pitch of each string higher or lower depending upon which way you turn them. So you got your body connected to your neck, connected to your head. The electric bass is a very quiet instrument if you play it unplugged. So if you want to make some noise, you're going to need the help of an amplifier. Amps come in all sizes, from ones as big as a refrigerator to those that can almost fit in your pocket, but a small, simple one is going to work great for starting out. To plug in, you'll need a patch cord like this one. First, plug one end of the cord into the output jack of your bass. Then, with the amp turned off, plug the other end into the input jack on the amplifier. Next, turn the volume knob on your bass all the way up, which should be clockwise. Turn the volume on your amp all the way down, and then turn it on. These EQ knobs should be around the 12 o'clock position. Now you can turn up the volume on the amp a little bit and pluck a string to see how much sound you're getting and adjust as necessary. But if the room starts shaking, it's probably loud enough. How you hold the bass depends on whether you're sitting or standing. If you choose to sit, find a good sturdy chair and take a load off. You'll want one without arms though, because they just get in the way. Now rest the curve of the bass body on your right leg and have it lean into you a little bit. If you're playing a lefty bass, do the opposite and rest the bass on your left side. But don't let that bass get away from you by sliding down your leg. If that's happening, try elevating your right leg by using a footrest, or maybe an old phone book will work. Rest your right forearm here at the hump and let the hand dangle until we're ready to use it. The weight of this arm should be enough to hold that bass in place, so you don't have to hold the neck with your left hand. Notice that the neck is pointed up slightly. The benefit to holding your bass like this is that it frees up your left hand to move quickly around the neck for those super fast bass lines. You shouldn't have to push down on the body with that right arm either. Just try and keep it relaxed. If you want to stand, you're going to need a strap to hold that bass up, like this. Straps are connected using these strap buttons located here and here. Straps are adjustable, so try and find a comfortable playing height for yourself. A lot of times you see those rock guys, with their basses or guitars riding real low like this. And while that looks pretty cool, I don't recommend it, because you'll strain your wrist and it makes reaching those notes more difficult. Having the bass too high is also not a good idea, because your right wrist has to bend too much to pluck the strings, and that can cause some physical problems down the road. Everybody's different, but to find the perfect spot, Start with the bass centered on your stomach and adjust from there for comfort. All right, let me show you how to hold the neck. Put your left thumb on the back of the neck like this, and then curl your fingers around to the fingerboard. Don't strangle your bass, just keep your hand relaxed and ready to move. Let your left elbow hang out a little away from your body. Not too much so it looks like a chicken wing, just a little bit. The neck should be tilted up a little like this. Tuning the bass is extremely important. When you tune, you're correcting the pitch of each string by tightening or loosening them using the tuning keys. Pitch refers to how high or low a musical tone is. As you tighten a string, you'll find that the pitch goes up, and if you loosen it, the pitch goes down. Without your bass in tune, anything you play is going to sound kind of off, so be sure to spend some extra time with this lesson. There are a few ways to tune your bass, but the easiest and most accurate way is with an electronic tuner. They sell these for about $20 at your local music store, and if you decide to get one, I recommend the kind specifically for guitar and bass. The other kind of tuner, called a chromatic tuner, is more difficult to use when you're just starting out. What this little beauty does is listen to the string you play and tell you whether you need to loosen or tighten it. Pretty nice chunk of plastic. But don't worry if you can't get your hands on one of those gadgets right away. I'll play each of my open strings so that you can match those pitches to the strings on your bass. This is going to take some heavy-duty listening on your part though, so please turn off any dishwashers, weed whackers, or any other noise-making machines in the background before we start. Okay, when I play a string, pluck the same string on your bass and listen to hear if your note is higher or lower than mine. If it's higher, use the tuning key to loosen a little bit, or if it's lower, turn the other way to tighten. Be sure to turn the key very slowly so you don't overshoot your mark. Here we go. First string is G. The second string is D. Third string is A. Finally, the fourth string is E. Just so you know, throughout this video, I'll sometimes refer to the strings numerically, with the lowest string being 4 and the highest 1. The terms lowest and highest are referring to pitch and not to physical location. So this string right here is the lowest, and this one is the highest. All right, now we got that out of the way. You're in tune. Let's move on. So you know how to hold the bass. Now I'm going to show you the correct way to pluck those strings. The most common way is fingerstyle, using your index and middle fingers. This will give you that big, deep, luscious sound that's good for all styles. The first thing to talk about here is thumb placement. When you're playing the 4th or E string, rest your thumb on the pickup for support. Now use either finger to start and lay the fingertip over the string. Keep your finger flat, not curled like a claw. Pull it across so that it rolls over the string and lands on the thumb. Try the same thing with the other finger and see if you can get the same quality of sound. When you play any of the other strings, move your thumb off the pickup to hang out on the E string instead. And after pulling the note, let the finger come to rest on the string behind the one you're playing. How about we play a bit right now to get the feel of it? I'm going to play 4 notes on each open string, and I want you to do the same thing with me, starting on the low string E and working all the way up to G. Alternate picking fingers as you proceed and try to make each note even and the same as the last. Remember to rest your thumb on the low E string when you're playing the higher strings. Okay, ready? 1, 2, ready, go. You may have noticed that some players out there don't use their fingers at all to pluck the strings. Instead, they use a little plastic thing called a pick to do the dirty work. A pick will give you a more accented sound than your fingers, so some folk prefer it for laying down their hefty rock and roll bass lines. Here's how you hold it. First, curl your index finger around like this. Then place the fat side of the pick over the side of your finger and lay your thumb across it to hold it there. You can attack the strings with a downstroke, which means down and away from you, or an upstroke, which means up and towards your body. Let's play the same thing we did a minute ago, but using all downstrokes with the pick. I'm going to start on E again. 1, 2, ready, go. So now you have a choice to make, pick or fingers. The decision is yours for now, but eventually it'd be good to learn both so you can have access to both sounds. Obviously, you're going to need to know how to play other notes besides just the open strings, so let me show you right now. Remember those little metal bars I pointed out before called frets? We're going to give each one a number. This is your first fret, and they go up in order from there. Second, third, fourth, and so on, all the way up to the 21st or so. Put your index finger here on the G string, just next to the first fret, but not on top of it, and squeeze the string down with your fingertip until it makes firm contact. Now pluck that string with the right hand and see what happens. If you get a nice clean tone, then you've got it. But if there's a strange buzzing sound, just press a little harder and see if that buzzing goes away. You shouldn't have to press too hard to get a note out. In other words, you shouldn't be in pain or anything. Try and find the least amount of pressure it takes to make a clean sound, and that's all you need. All right, let's try another note on the same string, but we'll use our middle or second finger to hold down the second fret. Again, press down just next to the fret on the side closest to the headstock, and pluck that string. You can keep going if you want to, up to the third fret with your third ring finger, and then to the fourth fret with your pinky. Nice work. At some point in your life, you probably flipped through a book or stumbled on a piece of paper with music written on it and thought, what the heck do these crazy symbols mean? Do I need to learn how to read this stuff to play my favorite songs on the bass? Well, I have good news and of course bad news. How about the bad news first? If you plan on becoming a serious musician, one day you will absolutely want to learn how to interpret all those dots and figures into beautiful melodies. That can take a while, and my job is to get you on the fast track. So the good news is that I'm going to teach you a system that is much easier, but still uses some of the rhythmic fundamentals from classical notation. It's called rhythmic tablature, or rhythm tab for short, and you'll need to know this stuff before moving on to the next lessons. Let's start out like this. The average bass has 4 strings like this one, right? That means our tab staff will have 4 lines on it, 1 line to represent each string. Staff is just the musical term for the group of lines that we write notes on. The line on top is your first string G, and it goes down in order from there. So the next one is your second string D, then third string A, and finally the fourth string E. Now when you see a number on one of those lines, it's telling you what fret to play on that string. For instance, if the number 1 pops up on the top line here, that means you have to play the first fret on the G string. If you see the number 3 on the second line from the top, it means play the third fret on the D string. Well, what if there's a 0 on one of the lines? I'm glad you asked. That means play the string open without fretting any notes. What you learned in the previous segment was the tab basics. The rest of what you need to know is all about rhythm, which means timing the notes you play so they're struck at the right moment and then held for the correct duration. Rhythm is always in sync with the beat or the pulse of the music, which if you play in a band is usually supplied by the drums. But even so, everyone playing in the group needs a strong sense of rhythm for the music to sound any good. So we're going to take those numbers on the tab staff, and we're going to add some symbols that tell you how long to hold them. Check it out. Any number that is enclosed by a circle gets 4 beats and is called a whole note. What I'm going to do is demonstrate the whole note by playing 4 of them on my open D string. Listen and look at the tab below. First I'll count off. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another kind of note is the half note. This one is worth 2 beats and has a stem attached to the circle. I'll play a few of these to give you the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The last kind of note I'll show you for now is the quarter note, which gets only 1 beat and has a stem attached to the number, but no circle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. See those lines running vertically on the staff? Those are called bar lines, and their job is to divide the music into groups of 4 beats. Each group of 4 beats between the bar lines is called a measure or a bar. This is all just a way to make reading music easier by dividing it into smaller, more digestible parts. All right, let's talk about one more thing. The 2 numbers stacked at the beginning of the staff is called a time signature, and it tells you how many beats are contained in one measure. The top number tells how many beats are in the measure, and the bottom number tells you what type of note will equal 1 beat. In this video, we'll be dealing mostly with 4/4. This means 4 beats per measure, where a quarter note equals 1 beat. 4 quarter notes per measure. Simple, right? Okay, that was a ton of information in just a few short minutes, so don't worry if you don't get it all right away. Just take a moment and then maybe watch this segment again. I think we're ready to get down to business. Let's play a little something using the tab reading you just learned on the open strings. This song is going to mix together a couple of the rhythms as well, quarter notes and half notes. Remember to alternate your right hand fingers unless you're using a pick. You'll hear 4 clicks as a count off, and then we'll go. Make sure when your finger plays a note, it rolls over the string and comes to rest on the one behind it. Or in the case of the low E, it comes to rest on the thumb. The next tune we're going to play also just uses the open strings, but as we come down in order from G to E, I want you to see something my right hand is doing. Moving from one string to the next in this direction, I drag the finger I used last to play the first note on the new string. You got that? I'll show you what I mean. See, I start here, play the next string down by dragging the finger across. I can also do that with the other finger. If I travel the other way though, it's just alternating fingers the whole time. Now let's try that tune. We have a handle on those open strings now, so I feel it's a good time to get some fretted ones in the mix. On your left hand, you have 4 fingers, right? Well, okay, you really have 5, but the thumb doesn't count here because it's stuck behind the neck. We're going to number these guys 1 through 4, with the index finger being first, the middle being second, the ring third, and the pinky fourth. Put your second finger on the second fret of the G string and press down to get that note. Fantastic. That beauty is called A. What? I thought that the open string over here was called A. Well, yes, they both are actually. You see, the musical alphabet goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then starts over again at A. The next set is said to be an octave above. If you play that low A on the open string and this second fret A, you'll hear that they sound very similar. All right, enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's play a two-note jam using that new A and the open G. You ready for another? If not, go back and try it a few more times, because you'll get it. The next thing we'll play highlights the octaves, so your picking hand will get a workout. After you master this song, it's probably a good idea to go back to the tuning section and see if your bass is still in tune. If things are sounding kind of funky, that could be the problem. Great, how about we move to the D string and learn some notes there. The D string has 3 notes that you have to know for now: D, E, and F. You already know D because that's the open string, so that just leaves E and F. Take your second finger, put it on the 2nd fret of the D string, and hit that note. That's your E, which is an octave above the low open string E. Now put your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the same string, and that is F. I feel it's time for another workout, so let's get down to it. If at all possible, try and keep your eyes on the tab as opposed to on your bass while playing these tunes. That'll help you to keep up with the music. Here's another one using these notes. Excellent. Let's keep going when you're ready. Did you notice that symbol on the staff at the very end of the song? That's just the musical notation for end here. All right, I'm going to switch gears for a minute here and teach some more of the mystical symbols found in written music, rests. A musical rest is a pause, and like notes, they have their own set rhythmic duration according to the beat. Now, this doesn't mean it's time to put your bass down. Pick that thing back up. For now, I have 3 kinds of rest coming your way. The whole rest, which looks like this, is worth 4 beats. A half rest, which looks like an upside down whole rest, is worth 2. And a quarter rest gets just 1 beat. I'll show you how this works by using a short example. During a rest, try using your fretting hand to mute the strings by laying them lightly across so you don't get any leftover sounds happening. How about one more example, and then we'll keep going. Hey, we're really moving now, so how about another string? The notes on the A string, the 3rd one, are A, B, and C. Of course, A, you already know because that's the open string. B is on the 2nd fret and C is on the 3rd. You play them just like you would the notes on the D string by using your 2nd and 3rd fingers. There's B, there's C. Do you feel a practice song coming on? Hey, guess what? That exercise you just played was an A minor scale. A musical scale is a specific pattern of notes that can be used to create bass lines and hard rockin' riffs. Go back and play that one a few more times to get the sound in your head, and then we'll play another example. This one uses the same scale or pattern of notes, but puts them in a different order. Okay, it's time for a new musical symbol to add to your ever-growing bag of knowledge. The repeat sign. They look like this and simply tell you to repeat everything in between. If only one repeat sign appears, that means repeat from the beginning of the piece. Here's a short ditty with a repeat. Before we move on to the next string and I fill your head with any more notes, I want to show you two new things. The first is the tie. A tie in music connects two notes and tells you to hold the first through to the end of the note tied to it. For instance, if you see a half note tied to a quarter, you have to hold it for 3 beats because 2 beats plus 1 equals 3. Or if you tie a half note to another half, it would be held for 4 beats. You can tie any two notes together, quarter to quarter, half notes to whole to whole, and it's always the same simple math. The second thing I have to show you is another way of extending the value of a note, but this time by adding a simple dot. See this note here? That's a dotted half note, one of the most common of all the dotted notes out there in the world of rock and roll. What the dot does is extend the note by 1/2 of its value. So since a half note is worth 2 beats, and half of 2 is 1, then the value of this note becomes 3 beats long. If nothing else, you can just remember that a dotted half note equals 3 beats. Here's a short exercise that has both dots and ties. When learning this, it helps to count the beats out loud while you play, and I'll count with you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Be sure to play that one a few times and really get the hang of it before moving on. This next song will give you more practice with ties. I gotta tell you, I'm feeling pretty good right now because we're moving along nicely. Let's take it way down low and get that E string warmed up. The E string has 3 notes on it for now: E, F, and G. The E is open. F is on the 1st fret. Use your 1st finger on that one. And G is on the 3rd fret, using your 3rd finger. Let's see how those new notes sound on a short jam that happens to also include a few dotted half notes for practice. Remember that those dotted half notes are worth 3 beats. You should probably count aloud while you play. Remember that A to A octave we talked about from a few lessons back? Well, now you know 4 different octave pairs: E, F, G, and of course A. I have a couple songs for us to play right now using those octaves and new notes. By the way, when you play an octave shape with 2 fretted notes, it's best to use your 1st finger and pinky like this. When you're ready, here's the next one. Just when you thought you had mastered all those rhythms on the bass and you didn't think there were any more, well, there are. An eighth note looks like this, with a stem and a flag attached to it, and is worth half of a beat, which means it takes 2 eighth notes to equal a quarter note, or 1 beat. When these eighth notes are grouped together, though, they look a little different and use beams to connect them. Earlier, we were just counting the beats as 1, 2, 3, 4, but when we add eighth notes to the mix, we count this way: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. By adding the "and" between numbers, I'm dividing the beat into 2 halves. So now, just to make sure you're with me, I'm going to play a measure of quarter notes on my bass, followed by a measure of eighth notes at the same tempo, so you can see and hear how they relate. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You can play that back a few times before moving on if you need to. But if you're ready to go, let's get to rocking some eighth notes with this little jam. We're definitely going to play some more of those eighth notes in a short minute. But first, I need to show you another little tricky thing you're bound to come across in your musical journeys called the pickup measure. If you've noticed, every measure in every song we've played to this point has had 4 beats. But a pickup measure, which happens at the very beginning of a song, has less. It may just have 1 beat, or 2.5, or whatever the case may be. It just happened that a long time ago, someone decided that they didn't want to start out a song by looking at a bunch of rests. And so the pickup measure was born. See this pickup that's being shown here? It's only 1 beat. And since we're in 4/4 common time, which means 4 beats in every measure, the pickup note falls on beat 4. You can see that more clearly when we fill up the missing beats with rests like this. So to count off and play this pickup, I'll count 1, 2, 3, and then play the quarter note, which is beat 4. Then continue with the rest of the song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and etc. I want you to play a short tune with me now that contains both the pickup and eighth notes. Have no fear though, because this one is on the easier side to get used to both new ideas. You know, when we were learning all those notes here on the neck in what's called first position, you probably noticed that we skipped a few frets on each string. Those frets are where you find some of your sharp and flat notes. And I'll just wait until now to tell you. Generally speaking, sharp means higher in pitch and flat means lower in pitch. So check this out. Here's an F on my bass on the first fret, and here's G on the third. The fret or note in between them has 2 names. Because it is 1 fret higher in pitch than F, we can call this note F sharp. But it could also be called G flat because it is 1 note lower than G. Here's another example for you. You have an open string A and a B on the second fret. What does that mean for the note on the first fret? Well, since it is 1 fret higher than A, it could be called A sharp. And 1 fret lower than B, it could be called B flat. For the overachievers out there, the term for this is enharmonic. So we'd say that A sharp and B flat are enharmonic. All right, it's time to play again. This hot number features the new B flat you just learned on the first fret of the A string. Because it's on the first fret, be sure to use your first finger for that one. This next tune has a pickup on beat 4, but watch out because it's 2 eighth notes instead of the single quarter note you're used to seeing. about I introduce you to a couple more sharp and flat notes on the other two strings. The first fret note on the G string is called G sharp, or A flat. And the first fret note on the D string is called D sharp, or E flat. I have tons more songs to play, and here's one right now. A long time ago, or maybe it was just a few lessons back, but it seems like a long time, doesn't it? We learned dotted half notes. Well, here's another note that is sometimes found with a dot attached, the dotted quarter note. This one gets 1.5 beats, so you can think of it as being a quarter note tied to an eighth note, like this. I'll play this measure for you and count to help get this rhythm in your ears. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Now how about a slow jam for practice? Every song we've played so far has been in 4/4 time, which you now know means having 4 beats per measure, with the quarter note getting 1 beat. Not all songs in the world were written that way, however. Some are in 3/4 time and only have 3 beats, which gives the tune kind of like a waltzy feel, like this one. Now that you know all those notes and your fingers are flying around the neck, I'm going to give you a couple more scales to learn. If you remember from before, a scale is an arrangement of notes in a specific sequential pattern, and that pattern can be used to create rock and roll riffs and bass lines. Most scales contain 8 notes, with the first and last ones being an octave apart. That first note you play in the scale is also called the root note, because it sounds kind of like home bass. Here's one now, the E minor scale. And here's another one, the F major scale. The difference between a major and a minor scale is just that the overall sound of major is happy, while minor sounds a little sad or dark. Listen for that while you play. This is my favorite part of teaching bass, when I get to start showing you how to make up your own bass lines by finding the right notes to play under chords. In many rock songs you hear in your music collection or on the radio, there's a keyboard player or guitarist playing chords. A loose definition of a chord is just a group of 3 or more notes that are played simultaneously. We bass players don't normally strum chords like a guitarist would, but we still have to know about them since our bass lines use the notes of the chord being played. The best place to get started is by using the root note of the chord for a bass line. In the example shown, you'll see chord symbols above the tab staff with a letter name that tells you what chord is being played. If the chord symbol says G, then the root note of the chord is G. And if the symbol says E with a little M next to it, which means E minor, the root is E. Simple enough, right? So how about we play this example so you can hear how the background chords being played and the root notes go together. Here's another example of a bass line using just root notes to accompany the chords. In addition to the root, you can also use other notes to create bass lines like the octave of the root. You might recognize this tune. Here's one more example in the song of root notes following the chords, but with one little twist. There's also eighth rests mixed in. An eighth rest is worth the same as an eighth note, but of course it's a half beat of silence. If you take any of those scales we've learned and count up 5 notes, you find what's called the fifth of the scale. That makes sense, right? Chords also have fifths, and they can be found on the fretboard by going up the scale of the root of that chord. The first thing we have to do is learn 2 new scales and count the notes up from the root to find the fifth of each. You already know the F major, E minor, and A minor scales from before, so let's go ahead and learn the G major and C major. Here's the G major. When you count up, D should be your fifth. This scale will also include a new note on the 4th fret of the D string called F sharp. You should play it with your 4th or pinky finger. This one is C major. The fifth of C is G. And this one goes way up high, higher on the fretboard than we've ever been, which means a couple of new notes here too. We have B on the 4th fret of the G string and the high C on the 5th fret. Play the B with your 3rd finger and the C with your 4th. Here we go. Go back now to the first few scales we learned and find the fifth for each of those. When you've done that, we can play this song, which uses the root and fifths in the bass line. Here's a secret. You can also play the fifth below the chord's root for even more bass line creating options. The fifth below is always easy to find since it's on the same fret as the root, only 1 string lower. Let's finish up learning the rest of the notes in the first position on the neck. The ones we haven't done yet are the G sharp or A flat on the 4th fret of the E string, the C sharp or D flat on the 4th fret of the A string, and the A sharp or B flat on the 3rd fret of the G string. Use that 4th pinky finger for the 4th fret notes. This song is going to give your pinky finger a good workout. Guess what, my friends? You've made it to the best part of this video. We'll be playing 3 full songs. This isn't really a lesson, it's more of a jam session. And what makes these songs so special, besides their complete rockness, is that the folks learning guitar, keyboard, and drums from the rest of the Fast Track series are learning the very same ones. This way, you can learn by yourself and play along with this recording, or form a band with your friends, rehearse a little bit, and hit the stage. Before we get started, however, I think this would be a good time to check your tuning. And if anything from previous sections is still fuzzy, go back and review now. You really need to know all this stuff cold, and the repetition is the best way to learn. This first one's a heavy rock tune. Be sure to look ahead a measure to see what's coming up next so you can keep up. How about we take it down a notch with this slow jam, unplugged style. For our last number, get ready for some good old classic rock and roll. Well, I think we've crammed enough musical goodness into this DVD to keep you busy for a while, don't you? Remember, repetition is the best way to get good playing any musical instrument, so keep reviewing these songs and lessons until you know it all cold. Because hey, you're not going to be able to think too much about what finger goes where when you're up on that stage doing a spread eagle off the amplifier showing off your rock and roll moves, right? And when you get hungry for more, I suggest you pick up the Fast Track Bass 2 book and the Fast Track Bass songbook that includes some real good classic songs by your favorite artists. There's some great stuff in there. I guess it's so long for now. Keep those fingers moving and the bass rocking, and we'll see you real soon.